Hi, my name is Emily, and this is my video for our group interaction project. For this project, I'd say that we'd function pretty effectively as a team. We had one common goal, which was to grow our $10,000, and every decision that we did had a mutual agreement, and so no one did their own thing throughout the project, and that independence pushed us towards being a team. So we also had a rotating observer role where one of us took a turn watching the group instead of participating. Brian took that role in our first meeting, and then Callum observed the second meeting, and then I observed the last one. And that structure meant that everyone had to step back at some point and see the group from the outside perspective, which I think helped us stay accountable to each other overall. Next, I'm going to talk about our individual roles as a team. So Callum naturally took on like the task-oriented roles, and he volunteered to build and maintain our stock trading spreadsheet. And he also became the person that we looked to for the updated numbers, as he did have control of that. So I fell more into the role of the information getter and evaluator. I was asking questions and weighing pros and cons before we committed to a single trade. I did notice interaction shifted when someone was observer instead of participant, as they were able to view the discussion versus the remaining ones had to carry the discussion, and it made me realize how much each person's input shaped the conversation overall. Next, I'm going to talk about the norms. So one formal norm that was every trade had to be a mutual decision, so no individual moves were made. So informally, our meetings always started with like a review of the current values before any discussion happened, and then that became just sequenced by the second meeting. And our attendance was really strong. All four of us were able to be present at the meetings, which is better than I expected going in. Communication stayed respectful as well throughout, and I'd say the leadership style that came from it was just very mutual. And since the mutual agreement rule basically forced shared decision making rather than one person driving everything, it worked out really well. Next, I'll talk about power throughout. So Callum had a lot of informational power in the group just because he owned the spreadsheet and always had current numbers in front of him when we were meeting. This gave his input a little bit more weight during discussions, so I don't think anyone had more positional power over anyone else. We were all working together, but expertise showed up when he had an opinion about a specific stock, or when we would debate shifting money out of NVIDIA into Apple. I didn't notice any real power plays other than just collaborative team decisions. For interaction patterns, our interaction patterns were definitely changing over time. The first meeting was a little bit more about brainstorming, where we were just throwing out ideas like NVIDIA, Bitcoin, and Apple, and debating each one. And by the second meeting, it became a little bit more analytical. We're looking at the actual performance data and deciding to make monies transfers from NVIDIA to Apple just to reduce risk. And then by the third meeting, we were just confirming like the numbers and agreeing that the portfolio was pretty balanced, and chose to not make any changes. And I didn't notice any unbalanced decisions, and I felt like there was an even four-way conversation each time. And I'd just say overall it was a very cohesive group. So by the last meeting, our communication was flowing really smoothly all together, and we'd all gotten very familiar with each other and how we would communicate throughout. And next, I'll talk about the stages of our group's development. So looking back, I can identify like forming, norming, and performing pretty clearly. So first off, forming happened in the first meeting when we were just choosing our like initial stocks all together. The norming happened in the second meeting when we worked out how we'd actually like evaluate and adjust the portfolio all together. And then finally, like the performing showed up in the third meeting, where we made the just a strong decision to move without any other friction in the group. And I think we stuck. I don't think we got stuck in any single stage. We moved through them pretty consistently at a steady pace. Next, I'll talk about the format. So our agenda was just basically reflective thinking process. So each meeting started with defining where we currently were, and then reviewing the values, and then finally like analyzing the data, discussed options, and reaching a final decision. It wasn't really a step-by-step agenda, but we practiced and followed the sequence every time, which I think is part of why our meetings were pretty efficient and not too long. as well. And overall, I'd just say that this was a very effective group. We ended up with a slight gain of $114 by the second meeting and $121 by the third meeting. And we stayed pretty diversified across NVIDIA, Bitcoin, and Apple the whole time, instead of going all in one stock. What I was the most pleased with was how consistent our attendance was and communication was. And if I were going to do this again, I would want us to research investment options a little bit more before the very first meeting, so our initial choices were more informed rather than based on just general recent performances. I'd also want to explore a slightly wider range of stocks instead of settling on 3 fairly popular, kind of well-known names, since we could do a bit more diversification and it could have improved our returns overall.